Okay, so for my YouTube recently, I've done a number of prediction videos, thoughts on the competition, stuff like that. And a comment that comes up a lot is Mitch Hooper being the best of all time. So I just wanted to sort of discuss that and my opinions on it and yeah, what I think, and obviously talk a little bit about my career having competed against some of the all-time greats. I feel like I'm in a good position to talk about it. So, is Mitch Hooper the best of all time? Well, I guess for me, the difficult thing to talk about for Mitch at the moment is just the longevity side of things. I think that to be considered an all-time great, you've kind of got to have had that longevity. I think like Z, Brian, Maris, even to an extent, Magnus for Magnusson, you know, a few of the guys that were like exceptional, won number of titles, stuff like that, had that longevity where they were at the top for a good number of years. But, and here's where the kicker is, do I think that Mitch Hooper right now, as he is the most complete strongman I've ever seen? Now, I would say probably yes. So I was thinking a lot about it, and obviously I'm going to focus mainly on the ones I competed against. Obviously, I've always been a fan of strongman since I was a kid, but I think from the guys that I competed against, so the likes of Marius, Big Z, Brian, in my opinion, they're sort of the three best ever. Now, obviously, people like Magnus Ver, Kazmaier, even Tom Stoltman, obviously with 3 World's Strongest Man titles, you'd have to argue and say that they're the best competitors at World's Strongest Man. But have I ever seen consistency from their ability standpoint like I'm seeing with Mitch Hooper? Probably not, if I'm honest. So I look back at the Marius days, and he was as dominant as Mitch is when it was a time where the weights weren't as heavy. He was very good all round, but you notice when he went to things like the Arnolds and stuff like that, when the weights just got pushed up that bit, didn't always come out on top. But in sort of normal shows throughout the year, Super Series as it was, World Strongman Cups, comps in Poland, you know, independent competitions, and he was competing against the best guys in the world, he would dominate, except when it got super heavy. In those sort of shows where the weights were like heavy but not crazy, he would dominate the same as Hooper is. But I think when it comes to the absolute top end strength, I wouldn't say he was completely dominant. Now with Big Z, he had some events he could get beaten on, not by much. But one thing I would say is he had a real chink in his armour. If any of you remember back to 2009 World's Strongest Man was when he first won the title. He actually came dead last on the arm over arm pull. And it was something that he wasn't amazing at. His grip wasn't exceptional either. Heavy frame carry, stuff like that. He would sometimes drop some points there. And then with Brian, although he did have a couple of years where he was very good, I think he sacrificed other events. His overhead wasn't always great. It was very good, but not great. And I think he had times when he was good overhead, but I think perhaps he sacrificed his mobility a little bit to bring that up, which was actually a problem that I had. My overhead was always terrible, and for me to get my overhead good, generally I had to sort of bulk up a bit, when then it cost me a lot of points on every event. And I think Brian had a very similar issue. So although he did get to a point where he was overhead pressing, log pressing over 200 kilos, quite a bit over, I think it sort of cost him on other events to do that. So you sort of look at those three, and they're the best three I competed against. They were exceptionally good, absolute legends of the sport, but they did still all have chinks in their armour. And you say someone like Magnus Ver didn't really have a chink in his armour. Hard for me to gauge because obviously I didn't compete in that era, but you know, you'd put someone like him in that conversation. Kazmaier maybe as well. You know, there's a few others that were exceptional strongmen, but I have never seen someone as dominant as what Mitch Hooper is at the moment. Now, we've had, apart from World's Strongest Man, where Tom was fantastic, he was on, his form was amazing. He performed so well. Apart from World's Strongest Man, Hooper has been incredible all year. Now, I don't honestly see that there's a single event when he's on form. I know he had the issue at World's Strongest Man. Some of you won't have seen this yet. He tore his hands up pretty bad on the frame, yoke into frame carry. So it cost him a lot of points. So he ended up placing mid-pack on that. But obviously that would be an event that you'd normally expect him to win. But I genuinely don't think that there's an event that he's not top 5 in the world in when you've got all the very best guys there. And I'd like to know if anyone's got any sort of, not suggestions, but any comments, any events that you can think that he's not top 5 in the world on. Because, I mean, that's the amazing thing with Mitch. You tend to get like people that are good pressers are not always the best deadlifters naturally, and people that are good deadlifters are not always the best pressers naturally, and guys that are good at sort of the moving events, the heavy moving events like the frames and the farmers and yokes are not maybe always the best at the lighter, more speed-based moving events like loading races and stuff like that. And then you've got big guys that are great at moving heavy objects, but then they do Conan's Wheel and shields and they struggle. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone that's as well-rounded as Mitch, because again, he's got so much speed and athleticism that he's great at even if it's a lighter event, but even if you push the weights up super heavy, he's still unbelievably strong. So that's probably the big difference, I think, between Mitch and Marius, is Mitch has that absolute top-end strength as well. And yeah, I mean, I would say, just for me, at this moment in time, I always used to say that 4 from 2018 was the best strongman I've ever seen. And although I wouldn't consider him one of those all-time greats in terms of performances at World's Strongest Man, he was so amazing in that year that he won World's Strongest Man, won all the big shows. He was absolutely dominant, was so impressive. But I still don't think that matches what Hooper's done this year. And yes, he's got that blemish of World's Strongest Man on his list of competitions. Hardly a blemish coming second, and obviously tearing his hands up. But he, I think he's proved this year that he is the most complete strongman that I've ever seen. So yeah, much as I think that we're sort of going into a new wave with Mitch, I think potentially next year, the only sort of people I see that could really push him, if we can get Alexi back fully fit, if Tom's back fully fit, Trey keeps on his progression like he is. I actually think Luke Richardson as well has got the capabilities at some point. Now, it might not be next year, but he has got the capabilities of, at some point, of getting in that mix as well, because he's very much like Mitch, just not quite as good at the moment. He's very well-rounded. He hasn't really got any weaknesses. So I think someone like Luke Richardson could be a threat in the future. We know Tom is when he's on form. Yeah, Trey Mitchell's made great progress after his Achilles tear, and I think that he's going to continue to get better into next year. So yeah, and a fully fit Alexi obviously is incredible as well, and he has very similar sort of abilities to Mitch in the respect that he doesn't really have any weaknesses. So next year, I think it's going to be very tough for anyone to beat him. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's always possible. Mistakes happen, you know, things like that. And at that top level, small margins can make a big difference. You know, when we have events where lifting 10 kilos more can gain four points more, or if you're 4 seconds quicker on a moving event, that could end up placing you from sort of bottom of the middle of the pack to the top, you know. So the margins at the top level are very small. But the one thing I would say with Hooper is generally he delivers on every event. He doesn't make too many mistakes. Made a couple of little ones at Rogue, but they were very small and didn't actually really affect the points that badly. You could argue and say that the farmers into log press cost him 1 point. But aside from that, the little mistake on the arm over arm didn't actually cost him any points either. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that just for me and my own personal opinion, for someone to be considered the greatest of all time, you have to have that longevity and being able to do it for a lot of years. Maybe come out, sort of get over an injury or two and sort of overcome that adversity. But do I think that 2024 Mitch Hooper is the most well-rounded, consistent strongman I've ever seen? Then yes, I would say he most definitely is. Like I said, I've never seen someone with so much ability across all the events. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and he just doesn't really seem to have any weaknesses. So, do I think that moving forwards, people need to take a look at what he's doing? Maybe not, but they do need to figure out a way that they can compete with that. I don't think that most people could train and compete like Mitch does and be able to recover from it. And I don't think that a lot of that is down to him doing any special things for recovery. I think he is just that well conditioned, which is something that's come from his prior sports performances like marathon running and stuff like that. So he's got that great engine. He's obviously then, if you have that great engine, your recovery is much better. So I think someone coming into the sport with that level of conditioning and then that ability to get strong could probably compete with Mitch. But I think it's going to be hard for any of the guys to get that level of conditioning. Doesn't mean you can't work on it though. So I think you've got to, with strongman, always run your own race. You know, I remember in my time, Maris was winning everything, and people used to be like, "Oh, you need to be a great strongman, you have to look like Marius." And the reality of it is, he's a very different person to some of the other guys are. And like, just from a personal experience, for me to be as lean as what Marius was when he was competing, I know that that was very detrimental to my strength progress, being that lean. Now, he's someone that was naturally like very lean, so it wasn't hard work for him to look like that. And whereas for someone who naturally carries a bit of fat like myself, for me to get that lean, and obviously I have been leaner than he was when I've got on stage, it's very hard. Whereas for some people, it's not as hard. And I think with Hooper, you can't necessarily look at what he's doing and go, I need to replicate that, because I think he's a very sort of special individual in terms of his athletic ability. So I don't necessarily think you need to replicate that, but you do need to think about how you're going to make the improvements you need to make. Now, for some of the guys, it's getting a bit more athletic because they can match him on the strength stuff. And for some of the guys, it's a case of getting their strength levels up because they can match him on the athletic stuff. You know, someone like a Pavlo Cordiaca, he's as athletic as Mitch is in terms of his speed, his endurance, his conditioning, stuff like that. But he has his explosive power, but he doesn't have that top end strength that Mitch does. So it's just a case of sort of looking at where your weakness is and trying to address it and figuring out your training around that. So I wouldn't say there's a case that you need to copy what Mitch is doing, but you do need to figure out how you're going to close the gap on the areas that you're not where he is. So anyway, I think it's going to make for a very interesting 2025. I'm really looking forward to next year. I think hopefully we can see all those guys I mentioned fully on form in some big shows next year against him all at the same time. And I also am looking forward to hopefully seeing Thor and Mitch go at it in some sort of deadlift event somewhere. If they can't come to some sort of agreement to do it at the World Deadlift Championships or similar, I really hope that they make that happen, which I believe they're in talks with a few different promoters and stuff about potentially doing that. So it would be great to see. I think that if they can get the wheels in motion on organising that event, a Mitch Hooper max deadlift with suit showdown, I think that both of them will train for it and we'll see a new world record, in my opinion. So hopefully that happens. Or what I'm really hoping for is that Four and Giants Live guys can bury the hatchet, finally put an end to it all, and Four will come over and do the World Deadlift Championships, and hopefully I'll get to compete against him. Well, I'll get to lift in the same competition as him, because I'm not going to be lifting the same sort of numbers as he is. But hopefully it'd be great to compete with Four one more time, albeit just in a deadlift and him lifting a lot more than me. But anyway, it's all speculation at the moment. Hopefully we see it happen next year, and I think we will. In some capacity, we'll see Mitch and Four doing a showdown, and I hope that they obviously get rewarded for doing that in some significant way financially. So yeah, anyway, so to answer the question, is Mitch Hooper the greatest of all time? In my opinion, not yet. But is Mitch Hooper from 2024 the best strongman I've ever seen? I would say probably yes. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you've got any other comments, you know, if there's people you think could get in the mix with Mitch next year, where could you see the deadlift showdown happening? Stuff like that. Obviously, drop a comment below, and thanks for watching.